All right, and welcome to the big show today. It is Paul Zeise, of course, of the Post-Gazette. We do it every single day. We try and break down whatever is going on in the world of sports. And, of course, usually that involves the Steelers, especially a week like this week where we are at the talking about the Combine and all of the things that are happening. One of the things I will say that goes on at the Combine that I think a lot of people don't know. And again, if you've never actually been to the Combine or covered the Combine, of course, if you haven't been to the Combine, it's probably because there's no fans there. But I've actually covered the Combine a few times. And one of the things that you know is that everybody is in town for the Combine. Agents, general managers, agents. There's actually somebody, current players, are around at some of the things. And there are always discussions and whatnot that goes on. And so it does not shock me to read that Gerry Dulac, just a little bit ago, reported this, that basically the Omar Khan is meeting with Doug Hendrickson, the Najee Harris's representative, and they're talking about perhaps another contract. Clearly, Najee Harris is going to be a free agent. Clearly, he's been a guy that, if you look at what he's done, there are some people that are underwhelmed by what he's done, and some people that think that he's not good enough for them to spend a lot of time really worrying about, trying to re-sign him. That being said, I think that, and we've talked about Najee a little bit, I don't think that it's that big of a surprise that the Steelers are going to try and get him going. And I think that, and see if they can bring him back. And that's because, like I've said many times, and it's similar to what I would tell you about the quarterback position, you might not be in love with Justin Fields. You might not even, be in love with Russell Wilson. I get it. I understand it. But there aren't any guys on the market that are better than those two guys. They just aren't. There just isn't. The best free agent is Sam Darnold. I would rather have either of the Steelers guys than Sam Darnold. I think last year what he did was a little bit of a mirage. And I think if you think about what he did last year when it counted at the end, that was a whole lot more of what we come to, expect from Sam Darnold than what he did the first 15 weeks. So if you take him out of the equation, I will listen to arguments of some people that say he's better than the Steelers duo. But the reality is, I don't know that, he's so overwhelmingly better that it is a guy that you necessarily are going to go all in on. And so my thing with that is, just like the quarterbacks, if you're not a big fan of Najee Harris and you think Najee Harris is just sort of an average running back, or you don't think he's, nearly as good as his where they drafted him merits, I'll listen to that. You're probably right. But look at who is actually available. When they pick, if they were to pick a first-round running back again this year, I think it would go over like I think it would go over like a lead balloon, or whatever that saying is. Given what they've got out of Najee Harris, I don't think that they would do that again. And so they can still go out and draft a running back in the second or third or fourth round or whatever, and I don't think it would be that big of a deal. Doesn't take away from the fact that you still have to probably sign a guy. It sounds like they want to try and get Jaylen Warren back. I get it. It does. It sounds like they want to try and get Najee Harris back. And it makes sense. It really does make sense. From the standpoint And so I think when you look at what it's going to cost to bring Najee Harris back, I don't know. I think he's going to be on a very good deal for the Steelers. Able to find some better guys down the road, but I just don't think that right now there's a lot of other better. But as we found out, for the most part, I don't know that there's a super stud in this draft at running back. And if there isn't, I think that whoever you get in like the 4th or 5th round or 3rd round or whatever is probably going to have just as much of a chance of being good as, say, anybody. I'm just not really all that, impressed by whoever we have. And so I'm looking at it like this. Free agents, which I'm pulling up right now. Najee Harris is ranked so who's listed ahead of him? Aaron Jones, the Minnesota guy. Does that really excite you all that much for the Steelers to get Aaron Jones? I mean, maybe a little bit, maybe. Raheem Mostert, the guy from the Dolphins, is he going to be that much of an upgrade over Najee Harris? Probably not. And I'm saying to myself, you're probably going to pay guys a little bit more money because I would be willing to bet you'll get Najee Harris for a price that is cheaper than, these other guys. And if that's the case, I'm not a shock at all to anybody who pays attention that the Steelers are probably if they get Najee Harris and then they draft with you. I think, and they have Jaylen Warren back. I think that's probably the best they're going to do this off season, this cycle. Honestly, if you think about it, I mean that's. What's the best they can do for this cycle? Well, the best they can do for this cycle, guess what? Is probably Najee Harris. I know that, again, people get upset about it because, there's a lot of people that don't want him back. They don't think he's a game changer. They don't think he's a guy who's like a high-impact guy. But I think that you're judging him based on the fact that he was a first-round pick and not because of what he actually is, which is a good, solid, consistent running back. That's what he is. A good, solid, and consistent running back. I don't know. What else are you looking for from him? Period. What are you looking for from him? So I'm just in a place right now where I think that we sit and we spend a lot of time talking about Najee Harris. I'm back. I have no idea what just happened, but I'm back. Anyway, I was talking about Najee Harris. Bottom line is Najee Harris is a guy who in many, many ways is probably the best guy for the job for the Steelers. I know that that's probably not what people want to hear. I understand it, but it's the truth. So if they sign him, they have to almost sign him. There's no other alternatives here. There's no other guys over here. I mean, I'm looking at this list. It's not really exciting me a whole lot. Someone just suggested Javonte Williams from Denver. Again, are these guys upgrades over on Najee Harris? Nick Chubb 3 years ago? Well, yeah, obviously. But he probably wouldn't have been available if it was 3 years ago. J.K. Dobbins, he's had a hard time staying healthy. He's a good player, I guess. But I don't know that he's markedly better than Najee Harris. Najee Harris already knows the offense. He's here. He's been here. When you look at what he's done, his body of work, people want to say that, well, he's been underwhelming. I get it, and that's because he was a first-round pick. I also understand that that's not necessarily the standard. To me, the standard is he's a reasonably good running back for the Steelers. Now, the one thing that is interesting about signing him or a quarterback or, whatever they're going to sign is today that the NFL basically said today that the $279.2 million is what the increase or what the new salary cap is going to be. And I think that, if you look, Ray does a really good breakdown of it. So they could sign Najee Harris because, it basically is $24 million from last year. So I think that it's now, a thing of where they're going to have the ability to spend some money. It's going to be about $60 million. Right now it sits at $55 million, but they're going to make some changes with respect to restructuring some guys. They might cut another guy or two. And so it's really going to be in a situation where they're going to have $60 million to spend. So you look at a guy like Justin Fields, you're going to have to pay him $15 million at least, if not like, say, $18 million. You sign Najee Harris, probably another $7 or $8 million. If you can get Najee Harris and Justin Fields under your umbrella for only, quote unquote, only $25 million, then you're going to be in a good situation because at that point you really have an opportunity, really have an opportunity to go out and get the other guys that you need. But you have to take care of these, guys of your own, because if you don't, I think what's going to happen is you're going to go out, you're going to sign some of these other guys. And once you do sign some of these other guys, if they're not as good as Najee Harris, and you could have got Najee Harris at a better price or Justin Fields at a better price, boy, you're going to be kicking yourself, aren't you? And I don't think the Steelers are in a place where they want to be kicking themselves. And so I just think that this thing with Najee Harris makes a lot of sense to me. And I think that when you look at what the Steelers are doing in general, right? In general, the biggest thing is they're going to have money to spend to go get other guys. Like, if it's up to me, I would basically say next week is free agency. And so there's a legal tampering period that comes before it where you have an opportunity maybe to say, hey, let's come to a deal before you go on the open market. It's probably not a popular thing to say, but if I was Fields and Harris, I'd probably want to go on the market first. I just would. I would want to go out and find out what other teams are going to be willing to pay me. It might be a backfire. It might be a gamble because you might not get many offers. But I wouldn't want the Steelers to be able to dictate how much money I'm going to make. I just wouldn't. Especially now, if I'm Russell Wilson, obviously Russell Wilson's in a different situation because Russell Wilson isn't begging the Steelers to play, but Russell Wilson really wants to stay here. It's very clear he wants to stay here. It's very clear he wants to play here. And, you know, what's funny is over the last, week, I have read that no chance that Steelers are going to sign him. No chance he'll be in the building. I've read they want to sign him. We've heard Omar Khan say they're talking to him. So I don't know really where he stands with the Steelers, other than to say I think that it's really going to be an interesting situation to see what happens. Because a week ago, I'd have said there's no chance that Russell Wilson is coming back based on all the reporting that went on. Now, not sure. Now, not really sure. I mean, I kind of feel like there's a chance. There is a chance, right? And if he comes back, I think there's going to be a lot of people who are basically going to be really upset if the Steelers sign him again. But I would not just go by what's being reported by some people, and because other people are reporting other things, and because here's one thing I'm going to tell you. I kind of forget who it was, but one of the Steeler reporters on the beat a few years ago said, and I quote, "There's zero chance that the Steelers are going to draft Kenny Pickett. Zero chance." And what happened? I mean, what are we talking about? It's just one of those things where I'm going to tell you that I feel like a lot of the reporting that goes on with the Steelers, a lot of guys are kidding themselves into thinking they're real insiders. Honestly, because they're not. They're just not. And I think that's the thing that kills the reporting. There's so many people now, pretty much anybody that has a blog, anybody that has access to a web page, they all say the same thing. And what they're saying basically is they've got sources or they've got inside people. You know, we use the word sources a lot, but I've found that a lot of times it's a situation of where it's not about sources, but it's about who are your sources. You know? I mean, I could talk to the janitor that's in the building and say inside sources from inside the building. But I'm not saying what it is. I'm not saying who he is. You know what I'm saying? I'm just saying it's one of these things where I have a source. And, you know, I can hide behind the whole media thing, which is, well, I don't ever have to tell you who my source is. It's just one of those things. It's a pet peeve of mine every year. It's a pet peeve of mine. That the reporting that goes on here. So long story short, I am just right now, basically saying it's just, I'm not discounting or counting out the idea that Najee Harris, that Russell Wilson could be a Steeler again. Just not going to discount it. Not going to take it out. I'm just not going to do that because I think that I'm reading the tea leaves to suggest that there's at least a chance. Is it a good chance? I can't answer that. I don't know that anybody can, but at least there's a chance. I still feel that it is just basically now a situation of where everybody's sort of jockeying their information, and they're really trying to, and when I say jockeying, I'm talking about people on the inside, whether it be agents, whether it be the players themselves. They're kind of putting information out all over the place. Some seem to be trying to make it so that they confuse everybody. Others seem to actually be self-serving. Some seem to be putting out real information. That's just what I can see. And I think that it's really going to be interesting to see what happens. But again, my gut and my guess is that basically it's going to be Justin Fields at quarterback and Najee Harris starting at running back. That's my prediction. I don't know if that's going to be the case, but I do think that's, from everything that I've been told, everything that I've read, reading the tea leaves, reading in between the lines. I mean, one thing that I often do, I've been doing this now for 30 years. I've been in the media. 30 years. And I've seen a lot, been around a lot, heard a lot, observed a lot. Man, when I hear information or see information or read information, I probably see it a lot differently than a lot of people do. Because I kind of understand in many, many ways, that basically what is actually being said behind the scenes based on what's being said outside the scenes. And also, who is the source and where did it come from? That's just me. And I just think I think that's one of the things that I do really, really well. By the way, the game's always on at Archie's. Get down to Archie's on Carson Street. Archie's, home of 80-cent wings, Monday through Thursday. Home of the Paul Zeise grilled cheese sandwich. So get down to Archie's and enjoy a good sandwich and a good time. And if you do that, tell them that I sent you. When we are in a place where the Steelers are, they need to basically come to the realization very quick that they're no longer like the destination that they think they are, and they're going to have to pay guys if they're going to go outside the building. Najee wants to stay. Russell Wilson wants to stay. Justin Fields, I think he wants to stay, but he wants to stay only if he's going to be the starter. And I think that it's just one of those. It's just one of those things where if he's not the starter, then to me, it's just, he's going to go somewhere else. But I can't imagine they're going to. I can't imagine they're going to sign him if they don't want him to be the starter. Like, there are some people that think they might end up with both Najee Harris and Russell Wilson. I just can't see that, and I can't see that for the reason that I don't know that Justin Fields would stay around to be a backup. I just don't know that. I don't think he would. And since he wouldn't, well, I guess, since he wouldn't, I don't see how they're going to sign both of them. I guess they could sign Fields first, right? And then sign Wilson. But if they did that, that would be operating in bad faith. They'd have a hard time signing anyone else down the road. They really would. So, no, I don't see that happening either, because I think that it is important, really, for them to make sure that they have this quarterback thing solved before Monday or Tuesday or whatever the day is. It's one of those things where I think it's important that they do it the right way and they do it before free agency, and I think they will. By the way, as an aside, outside of the world of sports, just as an aside, did you see that Gene Hackman died today? One of the great actors of all time. I'm a movie buff on top of everything else. We'll get to the Penguins in a minute, but Gene Hackman is an incredible actor. And I say this all the time. When you look at a guy or an actor, an actress, and you try and determine if they're an all-timer, great, an all-timer, and Gene Hackman is, one of the things that it always sets them apart is they can play multiple roles. And if you look, he's made, 30, 40, 50, 60 movies? He's a different role in just about every one of them. So, rest in peace to one of the all-timers. And when I saw that this morning, I was just stunned. Because, again, these guys are basically, the guys that are dying, and many of them, over the last 2, 3, 4, 5 years, are guys that I grew up watching. And I say to myself, that really makes me think long and hard about my own mortality. But yes, and of course, everyone points to Hoosiers, but a different day, different discussion for a different day. I would explain to you that Hoosiers is not even one of his top 10 movies. In fact, I always think Hoosiers is one of the most overrated sports movies there is, but that's a different discussion for a different day, isn't it? Just wanted to mention there that an all-time great died, and I just feel like it's really tough. When guys that you grew up watching and admiring from afar, they're all starting to die, and that's because they're old. So it's just now back to sports real quick. The trade deadline for hockey is coming up. And the trade deadline for hockey, I think, is one of these things where in most years, it's been an incredible day for the Penguins because usually they go out and they try and get better. I would love to see this trade deadline be the one where they are basically ripping the Band-Aid off, admitting it's over for them, and try and trade everybody they can trade. Kyle Dubas, if you ask me, Kyle Dubas is a guy who's allegedly the smartest guy in the room, and he seems like he's really smart. Some people would say, well, it's just because he wears those glasses. I think he's really smart. But you know where he could really earn a lot of points and stripes as a general manager? If he could trade some of these guys. If he could trade some of these guys that have no trade clauses. Go and convince them they need to, help the Penguins out by basically, help the Penguins out by waiving their no trade clause and get as many of them waived as possible. And I think that it's okay. There are people that are scared to death of the Penguins starting over. The Penguins have never been in that camp where they started over. I mean, they almost went bankrupt the last time that happened because nobody went to the games. And the franchise was in trouble. Yeah, well, you know what? The franchise ended up with Sidney Crosby and Fleury and Malkin because they were so bad for a few years. And, that probably turned out okay for them. But I keep hearing people talk about, well, you can't rebuild and Sidney Crosby deserves more and blah, 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 blah. Okay, let me look at the standings. Oh, that's right. The Penguins are at the bottom. They're already in last place. They're already behind. What are we talking about here? You might as well go and if you're in last place, you might as well strip it down so that you can, rebuild quickly. Create salary cap space so that next year you can go sign some guys. I know they have draft picks, but guess what? In the NHL, a lot of draft picks that you have aren't going to be good for 3 years or 4 years before you see them, really, really have an impact in the NHL level. It's time. So if you're Kal Dubas, if Kal Dubas really wants to impress me, he can do it this way. Go ahead out and get these guys to waive their no-trade clauses. All right, that's it for me. We'll do it one more time tomorrow. I'm going to try and have Ray and Chris tomorrow, one of them tomorrow. We're going to talk more NFL, wrap it up going into the weekend, and then, of course, we will get after it again on Monday. But thank you for listening, and I will talk to you tomorrow.
Thank you for checking out this content from Post-Gazette Sports. If you watch this video on YouTube, please like the video and subscribe to our channel.